My name is Nicolette Bennett. I am 31 years old, and the story I am about to tell happened in Washington State on the kind of grey coastal weekend that makes everything feel colder than it is. 1 month ago, my own father stood up at my younger sister's wedding and erased me in front of a room full of people who had known me since I was a kid. I did not stand at the sweetheart table. I did not stand with the bridesmaids. I stood behind the videographer's tripod near the soundboard, exactly where I always place myself at family events, outside the frame, easy to ignore, easy to blame. I had this ridiculous little hope that maybe for once he would remember he had 2 daughters. Hope is a dangerous habit when your family has trained you to swallow your needs. When my father lifted the microphone, he tapped his glass like he was about to deliver wisdom. The room quieted. The string lights over the dance floor shimmered. He smiled at my sister, then looked out at the guests and said, "To my daughter." For half a second my chest lifted, then he chuckled and corrected himself. I should say my only daughter. He praised my sister as the pride of his life. Then his gaze drifted toward the back of the room, toward the technical corner where I stood, and he made a vague gesture as if he was pointing at a stain on the wall. "That thing standing in the back," he said, "was just a mistake I made 30 years ago." He laughed, and the room answered him. Some people laughed because they thought it had to be a joke. Some laughed because everyone else did. A few looked down at their plates, embarrassed, but no one stood up. No one told him to stop. No one asked if I was okay. I did not cry. I did not scream. I looked at my father and I let my face go still. Then I slowly swept my gaze across the tables, across the smiles that did not reach eyes, across the cousins and family friends who had watched my public execution like it was part of the entertainment package. I turned and walked out, through the lobby, through the revolving doors, and into rain that felt like needles. Water soaked my dress in seconds. My phone was still in my hand. It was still recording, because I had flipped to the voice memo app and hit record the moment he picked up the microphone. I do that for work. I protect systems for a living. I save evidence, because evidence is the only language certain people respect. On that sidewalk, with wind pushing rain into my hair and makeup sliding down my cheeks, I made myself a promise. This was the last time they laughed at me without consequences. That night I made 3 phone calls and sent 1 email that changed everything. 2 months later, my phone would light up with missed calls from the same people who laughed, all demanding the same thing. They would not ask if I was okay. They would ask what I did to them. Let that sink in. After that speech, I finally introduced myself to the version of me they created, and I decided I was done playing the role. The morning after the wedding, I woke up on my couch in my small Seattle apartment, still wearing the ruined dress. The air smelled like wet fabric and cold takeout. My mascara had dried into rough edges at the corners of my eyes. My phone lay on my chest like a weight. I stared at the ceiling for a long time, listening to my own breathing, waiting for the shock to fade. It did not. The first thing I did was press play on the recording. Without the clinking glasses and polite chatter to blur it, my father's voice came through my earbuds, sharp and clean, like the edge of a blade. I listened to the whole thing, all the way to the moment the room erupted, all the way to the sound of my heels crossing marble as I walked out. Then I saved the file, renamed it Evidence Wedding Speech, and backed it up to the encrypted storage I use for work. I am a cyber risk analyst for a network of private clinics. Backing up sensitive data is second nature. Yesterday it was audit logs and phishing reports. Today it was the sound of my father calling me a mistake. I told myself 1,000 stories for 31 years. He is old school. It is his humor. I am too sensitive. I should be grateful he kept a roof over my head. But hearing it again in my own quiet living room, there was no way to soften it. He meant every word. If he could say that into a microphone in public, what did he say in rooms with locked doors and no witnesses? And if he was willing to humiliate me to keep me small, what else was he willing to do to keep his world intact? The first call I made the night of the wedding was to the only adult from my childhood who ever seemed quietly horrified by how I was treated, my father's younger brother. To me, he was Uncle Daniel. To the world, he was Daniel Brooks, the former operations lead at Northline Mobility Solutions, the company my father loved to brag about at barbecues, as if it was a family heirloom. Uncle Daniel left that company 10 years ago under a cloud of vague rumors. My father always said Daniel could not handle pressure. I never believed that. Daniel picked up on the 3rd ring, voice thick with sleep and worry. "Nicolette, are you okay? I saw the live stream cut out. Did you hear what he said?" I kept my voice flat. I heard it. I recorded it. There was a pause, then a slow exhale like he was trying not to break something. I saw the clip, he said. Your cousin sent it. I watched it 3 times. Your father has lost his mind. No, I said. He is finally saying out loud what he has always thought. I am done pretending this is a joke. I want to know what he is hiding. Another pause. Nicolette, this is not just about hurt feelings, he said. If you start pulling threads around Gerald Bennett, you will not just find mean jokes. You will find things you cannot unsee. Then help me see them, I said. I am not a kid anymore. You were pushed out of North Line. I know it was not clean. You know where the bodies are buried. His voice went lower. You really want to do this? Because once you start, there is no going back to fake Sunday dinners and polite smiles. I pictured the ballroom laughter. We both know I was never really invited to those dinners, I said. Meet me tomorrow. Tell me the truth. He sighed, and in that sigh, I heard 10 years of swallowed anger. Fine. Noon. The diner on Aurora. Do not text this to anyone. And Nicolette, do not bring the phone your father pays for. After I hung up, I made the second call. My college roommate, Avery Collins, now one of the sharpest financial crime attorneys in the state. We had not talked in months, but when she heard my voice, she did not waste time. What happened? She asked. I sent her the audio file right there, watching the upload bar crawl, while rainwater ran down my wrist. When it finished, I said, listen, then tell me what I can do with this. The third call was to my own work number, to myself. I left a detailed voicemail documenting the date, the location, the wedding, the people present, and the fact that I captured a recording. Then I converted that voicemail into a transcript and stored it with the file. It was not just my heart anymore. It was evidence. The email I sent was to a generic tip line that looked boring on purpose. A state oversight inbox for public contracting. I did not accuse my father directly. Not yet. I asked what a citizen should do if they believed a major contractor was cooking invoices and retaliating against people who knew too much. I hit send at 2:17 in the morning and watched the message disappear. I slept for 2 hours, then sat up in the dark with my laptop open, feeling something in me harden into a shape I did not recognize. It was not rage. It was clarity. At noon the next day, Uncle Daniel slid into the booth across from me, eyes red, hands wrapped around coffee like he needed it to keep from shaking. For the first time in my life, he looked scared of my father. You really want to know why he treats you like that? He asked without preamble. I nodded. Because you are the one thing he cannot control, he said. You chose tech security instead of joining his empire. You refused to sign the family agreement he shoves at everyone. He has been moving money and contracts into your sister's name for years to punish you. Daniel pulled a folded packet of old emails and meeting minutes from his jacket. He forced me out because I told him what he was doing was illegal. Kickbacks, false safety testing, fake reports. He thought he could bully me into silence. When I refused, he made sure I could not work in this town. My stomach went very still. I stared at the papers, at the dates, at the signatures. So we dig, I said. If he insists I am a mistake, I will be the kind of mistake that ruins his perfect world. Avery did not waste time. By that afternoon, we sat in a cramped conference room at her firm, the kind with no windows and fluorescent lights that make every decision feel permanent. I scanned Uncle Daniel's documents and sent them through a secure portal. She read them twice before I even took off my coat. She tapped the stack with her pen. Your father runs Bennett Infrastructure Technologies, she said. 15 years of state and county contracts, smart intersections, traffic control systems, parking sensors. These minutes show he pushed his own brother out right before the company landed its biggest deal. This email is a threat. Sign the separation agreement and keep your mouth shut about billing practices, or you will never work in this region again. Daniel nodded. He meant it. I have been blacklisted from every major project since. Avery leaned toward me. Your skill set matters here, she said. You understand logs, metadata, version histories, document trails. If your uncle is right, there will be digital footprints. But we do this legally. No breaking into servers. No illegal access. We use public records, family documents, and anything your uncle already owns. Understood. I nodded. Understood. I meant it in that moment. We started with what was public. I spent nights after work, combing through county procurement databases, downloading every contract, Bennett Infrastructure Technologies, won in the last decade. I built a spreadsheet with dates, amounts, project names, and change orders. I cross-referenced timelines with news reports about mysterious delays and outages. Then I found a report that made my blood go cold: a pedestrian death at a crosswalk in Tacoma, where a newly installed signal system malfunctioned during a storm. The city statement said the issue was resolved. The family said it was ignored. I looked at the vendor name and felt my mouth go dry. My father's company. At the same time, Uncle Daniel requested his personnel file and board correspondence from the years before he was pushed out, using whistleblower protections. Some pages came back heavily redacted, but Avery knew exactly what those black bars meant. Someone was hiding something. On her advice, I filed a formal public records request for all safety inspections and incident reports tied to my father's contracts. Weeks passed. My days were filled with security trainings and clinic audits. My nights were spreadsheets and PDFs spread across my kitchen table. The pattern emerged like bruises on skin. Change orders signed late on Fridays that doubled costs with vague language. Invoices for consulting services paid to shell companies with no websites. All registered to a postal box 3 blocks from my father's office. Notes from county engineers about pressure to sign off quickly. The more dots I connected, the more I heard his voice in my head calling me a mistake. Like he had tried to convince me I was nothing, so I would never notice what he was doing. One evening I opened a document that changed how I saw my family forever. The share distribution report for Bennett Infrastructure Technologies. 5 years ago, my sister Lila had been gifted a 25% stake in the company in recognition of her marketing contributions. My name did not appear anywhere. There was, however, a familiar signature on a line labeled Waiver of Future Claims to Family Assets. Mine, dated the week I graduated college. I remembered the moment. A loud dinner. My father sliding a document across the table, calling it standard estate planning paperwork. He told me it would make things simple. I signed without reading because I was 22, tired, and desperate to avoid another fight. My hands clenched the printout until the paper creased. I sent Avery everything. He manipulated you into signing away rights so he could funnel assets to your sister, she said over the phone. It is disgusting. It may also be leverage if we can show coercion and retaliation. Retaliation like humiliating me in public, I said. Exactly. We built a timeline. My graduation. The waiver. Daniel's forced exit. The biggest county contract. The malfunctioning intersection. The wedding speech. The line from family joke to weapon became painfully clear. 2 weeks into our deep dive, I received an email from the state oversight inbox I contacted after the wedding. This time, it was not an auto-response. It was from a compliance officer named Ethan Park. He asked if I would speak confidentially about potential irregularities involving Bennett Infrastructure Technologies. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. This was the moment where my private humiliation collided with the law. I forwarded the email to Avery. She called within minutes. If you talk to them, Nicolette, this becomes a whistleblower case. Subpoenas. Hearings. Your family will know it was you. Are you ready? I thought of my father raising his glass, the room erupting. I thought of my mother Marjorie looking away instead of stepping in. I thought of Lila laughing because she did not want to ruin her wedding mood. He made me the villain in his story long before I ever touched a keyboard, I said. If I am going to be the villain, I might as well tell the truth. I agreed to meet Ethan Park. We scheduled it 3 weeks out to let Avery prepare. During those 3 weeks, the atmosphere at my parents' house shifted. Yes, I still lived there, technically. I rented a small finished attic room in their big suburban home in Sammamish because it was cheaper and because leaving felt like admitting defeat. Now the house felt like a surveillance zone. My father started locking his home office. My mother jumped at the landline. Conversations stopped when I entered the kitchen. They knew I was doing something. They did not know what. They were about to. Working in security teaches you one thing fast. People are careless with their passwords, especially people who think they are untouchable. Years ago, I helped my father set up his first smartphone. He insisted on using the same simple password he always used. I told him it was a risk. He laughed and said no one cares about an old man's emails. He was wrong. One night, sitting in my attic with my laptop glow on my face and his wedding speech looping in my headphones, I opened a private browser window and typed the webmail address for his company. I hesitated, hearing Avery's warning about staying legal. But then I remembered the waiver he tricked me into signing. He never followed rules when it came to controlling me. Why was I still playing nice? I entered his corporate email and the lazy password. The inbox loaded. I did not snoop for entertainment. I set a silent rule. Any email with certain keywords, audit, inspection, change order, my name would forward to an encrypted account I created under an alias. Then I logged out. Within days, messages trickled in. A thread from a county engineer pushing back on signing off early. My father replying, "We took care of your supervisor. Do not worry." Another email from a banker about moving funds into Leela's trust before year end. Then one message made my skin crawl. Family dinner Saturday. It was not sent to me. It was from my father to my mother and sister. "We need to bring Nicolette back in line before she does something stupid." My mother replied, "Are you sure this will work?" Lila wrote, "I just got back from the honeymoon. Can we not make this a war?" My father answered, "It is already a war. She just does not know the rules." When my mother knocked on my attic door and asked in her careful, brittle voice if I wanted a family dinner to clear the air, I smiled. "Sure," I said. "I would love that." And I started planning like my life depended on it. On Saturday, I arrived at the restaurant 10 minutes early with a small USB drive in my purse and a printed transcript of the wedding speech folded into quarters. The place was upscale, but not flashy. The kind of waterfront spot my mother liked, because it felt refined without feeling new money. The hostess led me to a private room. My parents and Lila were already seated, faces set in practiced expressions. 3 sets of eyes turned toward me with different shades of guilt, annoyance, and fear. My father stood just enough to perform manners. "Nicolette," he said, "you look presentable." I thought, "You look exactly like a man who should not reuse passwords." I sat down and let the silence stretch. After a few minutes of fake small talk, he slid a manila envelope across the table. "I asked you here because I am worried about you," he said, using his concerned father voice. "You have been emotional since the wedding. You have been saying things to extended family that could hurt our reputation. I want us to move forward." Inside the envelope was a non-disclosure agreement, aggressive and personal. It said I would never speak negatively about him, his company, or internal family matters. It threatened lawsuits that would drain me dry. In exchange, he offered a check for an insulting amount and a temporary reduction in my attic rent. He wanted to buy my silence cheap. "So let me understand," I said calmly. "You humiliate me in public and call me a mistake into a microphone. And your solution is that I sign a legal document promising I will never talk about it." He leaned back, irritation flashing. "It was a joke," he said. "People knew I did not mean it. You are making a big deal out of nothing." I reached into my purse and slid the transcript across the table. "This is word for word what you said," I replied. "My phone recorded it. So did the wedding team. I backed it up 6 different ways. I already shared it with an attorney. I also contacted a state compliance office. Both believe it shows a pattern of retaliation and emotional abuse." My mother's breath caught. Lila stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. My father's face darkened into a dangerous red. "You did what?" he asked. I did not flinch. "You have been moving assets into Lila's name, cutting out your brother, pressuring inspectors, and treating me like a punchline," I said. "You made 3 mistakes. You underestimated how much I notice. You assumed I would never fight back, and you left a trail." I placed the USB drive on the table, small and ordinary, like a seed that could crack concrete. He did not touch it. "What is on that?" he asked tightly. "Enough," I said. "Enough emails, contracts, side agreements, and banking references to make very serious people interested in how Bennett Infrastructure Technologies does business." The room went silent except for distant silverware clinking outside the private door. Finally, Lila spoke, voice thin. "You are going to destroy us," she whispered. "You are going to destroy everything he built." I looked at her. "He destroyed me first," I said. "I'm just done pretending I deserve it." I stood, leaving the agreement untouched. "You invited me here to bring me back in line," I said. "Consider this my notice that I stepped off the line entirely." As I walked out, my father followed with a threat wrapped in a warning. "Nicolette, do not do anything you cannot undo." I did not look back. "You should have thought of that before you grabbed the microphone," I said over my shoulder. The fallout came fast. My father stopped speaking to me entirely. My mother's text became clip notes about utilities and mail. But Lila surprised me. 2 days later she called. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice small. We met at a climbing gym in Redmond, where I usually went to burn off stress. We sat on the thick mats under bright-colored holes while quiet music played. Lila looked out of place in designer athleisure and spotless shoes. "I did not know he would say that," she blurted. I would have stopped him. "You laughed," I said. "You looked at me and laughed." She flushed. I panicked. Everyone was staring. It was my wedding, and he was drunk. I thought if I made it a joke, it would not feel so cruel. "Does it feel less cruel now?" I asked. She swallowed. "No." Then her voice sharpened with fear. "Nicolette, lawyers and state offices, you are taking this too far." I pulled out the share report and tapped the line with her name. "He gave you a quarter of the company," I said. "He tricked me into signing away claims. You want to talk about too far?" Her face drained. "I did not know about that," she whispered. "He told me you said you wanted nothing from him." "I said I did not want to be his employee," I corrected. "I never said I did not want a father." That landed like a quiet punch. "He paid for my wedding," she said. "He paid for school. He created a position for me." I thought he was supportive. "He was buying your loyalty," I said gently, "and punishing me for refusing to sell mine." She stared at the wall, then looked at me with a strange mix of love and terror. "If you do this, he will come for you. He will say you are unstable. He will tell everyone you are jealous of me. He has been saying that my whole life," I said. "This time I have receipts." Lila stood. "I cannot help you openly," she said. "He can ruin my career." Then she hesitated, eyes lowering. "But Mom keeps documents, letters from oversight, bank statements. She keeps them in a locked drawer in her office at the district building. If you want to know how deep this goes, start there." She walked away before I could decide if I wanted to hug her or scream. The next day, I went to my mother's office. Marjorie Bennett had built a career in education, polished and diplomatic, skilled at smoothing problems until they looked like they never existed. Her office was on the third floor of a bland district building. I called ahead. She said she was busy, then sighed and told me to come at 4. I walked in and closed the door. My mother looked smaller behind the big desk. "Nicolette," she said, "this is not a good time." "There is never a good time to admit your husband might be a criminal," I said. Her eyes flashed. "Watch your tone." Then her shoulders slumped. "What do you want?" I sat down without permission. "Lila told me about the drawer," I said. My mother's hand twitched toward it. That was answer enough. "You had no right," she began. "You had no right to stand there and let him call me a mistake," I cut in. "You had no right to help him hide money and push people out and pretend you did not know because it kept the house nice." My mother sagged. "You do not understand the position I am in," she said. "He controls everything. If I push, he threatens to cut us off. Do you know what it is like to build your life around someone who can ruin you with one signature? Do you know what it is like to grow up in that house?" I said quietly. "To learn love is conditional, and humiliation is humor." Silence stretched. Then my mother whispered, "Open the drawer." She unlocked it and slid it open. Inside were labeled folders. Contracts, trusts, college funds. A folder marked N. I pulled it out and my throat tightened. Letters from oversight raising billing discrepancies. A warning about suspension. Bank statements showing transfers into Lila's trust. Withdrawals from a college fund in my name. A copy of my waiver with a note in my father's handwriting attached. "Once this is signed, she is off the table legally. Focus on Lila. She is the future." My mother looked sick. "I did not see that note," she whispered. "But you saw enough," I said. "Enough to know you chose him over me." Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them hard. "Do you think I had real choices?" she asked. "I married him young. I was dependent. I was afraid." "You were supposed to protect me," I said. "Even if you could not leave, you could have drawn a line." "Not my child. Instead, you locked evidence in a drawer and hoped it would disappear." Her voice broke. "What are you going to do with this?" "I already have a meeting with the state compliance officer," I said. "Avery believes we have a strong whistleblower case. This makes it stronger." My mother stared out the window. "He will lose everything." "He should have thought of that before he decided laws were for other people," I replied. "And before he decided his daughter was disposable." That week I met Ethan Park with Avery beside me. We handed over everything. Daniel's emails, the procurement patterns, the safety letters, the bank transfers, the waiver, the wedding recording. Ethan did not promise outcomes. He promised an investigation. 2 months after the wedding, my phone would not stop vibrating during a clinic training. Missed calls from relatives, from my mother, from my sister, from my father. Messages stacked on top of each other. Panic in every line. Accounts frozen. Reporters calling. People saying my name like it was a curse. Then a news alert flashed on my screen. County suspends contracts with Bennett Infrastructure Technologies pending fraud investigation. There was my father in a suit, jaw clenched, walking into a government building like he still believed he could charm his way out. My father left a voicemail full of rage. They raided the office. They took servers. You destroyed your own family because you could not take a joke. My mother begged me to say I forced her. Lila asked me to explain. I listened, breathing slow, feeling something strange. Not triumph, not grief, relief. The illusion was cracking, and I was no longer inside it. My father requested a meeting through council. We sat in a conference room, him and his attorney on one side, me and Avery on the other. He looked older, edges of confidence fraying. "You did this," he said. "You turned a family disagreement into a criminal case." "This is not about feelings," I answered. "It is about fraud, bribery, falsified safety reports, and using family as cover." The speech just made it impossible for me to keep pretending. He tried guilt. "Your mother will lose her job. Your sister will lose her trust. The company will collapse. In every story, you will be the ungrateful daughter who betrayed us. You have been telling a twisted story about me my whole life," I said. "The difference now is that I have evidence." In the end, he took a plea deal. The charges were real. Fraud, bribery, falsifying safety documentation. He still went to prison. Fewer years than he deserved, but enough to make the point. The company lost contracts. Uncle Daniel negotiated to buy a clean portion under strict oversight. My mother cooperated fully and resigned quietly. She started therapy. Lila lost the condo deposit, and a chunk of security she never realized was built on theft. Months later, she met me again at the climbing gym, in an old t-shirt and borrowed shoes. "I read the reports," she said. "All of them. You were right." "I did not need to be right," I said. "I needed to be believed." I moved out of the attic into a small apartment with too much light and no locked doors. I kept my job, but I also started helping whistleblowers secure evidence. People who needed someone to tell them their truth mattered more than the comfort of the people who benefited from their silence. My father's wedding speech became a file in a case, not a scar I touched every day. I do not play it anymore. He does not get that space in my life. People ask if I regret it. If I would go back and keep quiet to keep the family together, here is the truth. My family was never together. It was held in place by fear, favoritism, and money. Blowing the whistle did not break something whole. It shattered an illusion. Blood made us related. Respect is what could have made us a family, and respect was missing long before investigators showed up. I chose myself. I chose air over suffocation. I chose truth over the performance of peace. If you have ever been treated like the mistake in your own family, I want you to imagine what it would feel like to stop begging for a seat at a table built to humiliate you. I want you to imagine walking out into cold rain and realizing the storm is not the end of you. It is the beginning.